right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the collecting track. How is everyone? All right. Now, the good news, the game today is indoors. It will not be affected by weather. So we're going to be having this awesome talk about sports and Star Wars collecting. Now, first of all, in case you don't know, after this talk, there's a social area right down the hall, 2 doors down. You can go and ask them questions, follow up, tell them a story if you want to. A whole bunch of fun stuff is happening down there. Like, that's where people are trading tots and patches and swag. If you really like this talk, and you want to watch it again, pay attention to YouTube. It's called the Collecting Track channel on YouTube. This and the rest of all the panels will be up there. There's a lot of great stuff, and you can't see everything. So, without further ado, here's Chris Logley, Mike DiStefano, and Gus Lopez. And I started collecting baseball cards way before Star Wars, so this is great. I can't wait to see what they do. Okay, let's give them a round of applause.
Sky, thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction, and we'll introduce ourselves here briefly. My name is Chris Logley. I live in Rockford, Illinois, although interestingly enough, I'm a member of the Indiana Star Wars collecting community. A great group of guys in that community. I enjoy Star Wars and I enjoy sports, and that was kind of the idea for this panel that both of the other folks up here with me do as well, so I'll let them introduce themselves and we'll get going.
I'm Mike DiStefano. Thanks, Steve. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with my 3 daughters and my wife, and I am a member of the Pennsylvania Club and have a crazy passion for running, so I'm happy to share that today.
Hi, and I'm Gus Lopez. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I've been running a few races with these guys, and so we are. It's interesting to see that Star Wars Collectibles has now evolved to really cover sports, which is something in the early days really was not well covered.
And before we kind of dive in, one other thing I want to say, don't be afraid to kind of make a friend either in the panel room here or when you're out there waiting in line, because Mike and I became friends several celebrations ago, way back in Celebration 4 in Los Angeles, and now here we are getting to sit and do a panel, and of course I met Gus around that time as well. So kind of just a little plug there. Don't be afraid to make a friend or talk to somebody in line, and you never know where you'll ultimately end up. So let's jump in and talk about Star Wars and sports. So today's panel, we're going to cover a few areas. First, we're going to talk briefly about some licensed Star Wars sports collectibles. We're going to talk about event-specific Star Wars sports collectibles, for example, the Star Wars Nights, jerseys, giveaways, bobbleheads, some of those you might be familiar with. You may have attended one yourself, and then something that the 3 of us, as Gus had said, we're passionate about and enjoy talking about, and I know we've got other friends in the audience that are as well. The Star Wars race medals and other race-related collectibles and questions. We probably won't have time for questions here in the panel room, but as Sky indicated, join us in the collector's social room if you want to talk about something or are interested in anything we talk about. We're happy to visit for a few minutes after the panel. So let's jump in a little bit and talk about some licensed Star Wars sports collectibles. And really what we're talking about here are things that are sold kind of at retail, things you could go out and buy. So what are some of those items we might be talking about? For example, team-branded apparel, team-branded accessories, and sporting equipment. So we'll look a little closer now at some of those. We could go on and on and on and show team or city, one after the other. So here's kind of an example, a classic rivalry in the National League Central, the Cardinals and the Cubs. So whether you're a Cardinals fan or whether you're a Cubs fan, you can find Star Wars sports apparel to express your passions for both your favorite teams and your interest in Star Wars as well. So here's a couple examples of some licensed collectibles and items that are sold at retail. You can find both apparel and a couple hats, and you see they follow kind of a similar design. Just change it and follow the team colors. So when we talk about accessories, you kind of really wouldn't believe, if you're not looking for it, the amazing vast array of things that have been created. Kind of even recently, Windcraft is one of the main licensees for these type of items, but there's pins and buttons and magnets and lanyards and flags and car koozies and drinkware. And as a matter of fact, this picture here popped up on my phone one day, just not too many months ago, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, when I was actually working on this panel, and Mike can tell you how this picture came to be.
So I was on a college visit with my oldest daughter, who's a junior in high school, and we were at the University of Pittsburgh. And when we were done the tour, she wanted to walk into the store and get something to take home. And lo and behold, as soon as I turned the corner, I found this whole section of Star Wars and University of Pitt merchandise.
So no matter what school you're at, no matter what major league team you follow, you're going to find some of it. So we'll share a little bit of that for college schools. I'm not an alum, but I'm a lifelong Notre Dame fan. So here's some examples of some of the items you'll see. For example, a pennant, some licensed window clings. There's a can koozie, a magnet in the middle there, and the play like a Jedi, kind of a play on the Notre Dame classic phrase, play like a champion today. That's a flag, a large size flag. I am an alum from the University of Iowa. Both my wife and I are. So here's kind of an example of some Hawkeye-related, again, licensed Star Wars sports collectibles you might see. Some decals and window clings. Again, a flag. You underestimate the power of, I guess, the Tiger Hawk or Iowa. I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to denote. But and so these are some more recent things, licensed items. But if you're a fan of vintage, there's stuff out there as well. You might not immediately come to mind, but there's stuff out there. So here's a vintage item. I don't know, Gus, if you want to talk a little bit about this.
This is one of the rare examples of vintage sports-related item. It's many of you, probably this is before your time, but there used to be a time when there were these things called stopwatches that you didn't do on your cell phone or your watch as a normal function. But basically, this was designed, in sporting events, particularly of this era in the early 80s, it was common to time events using these kinds of stopwatches. And this was one that was a Biker Scout themed one from Return of the Jedi.
And so, if you're training for a Star Wars race now, I guess you could go out and spend the money and find a vintage item to help you in your training, theoretically. So there's other items as well, too.
Yeah, they made, for Return of the Jedi, they went all out with a lot of this kind of stuff, but they had roller skates and ice skates. I don't know if we have later, we might have, there's also Ewok-themed ones that came out later. These are super fun to find. It's very hard to find them like an original box with an unused skate, but they were starting to branch out into different categories by the time of Return of the Jedi.
And kind of a more current item, I don't know if some of you have been out on the exhibit floor and seen Wilson Sporting Goods has, I would say a booth, but it's really more than a booth. They've got a trailer out there parked on the show floor, kind of old school locker room style, and they've offered some of their products there. And here's some items they've offered previously. Actually, let me back up. The Death Star on the left was a prior Celebration exclusive, was not a Wilson Sports item. I believe Celebration Europe, if I recall correctly, Gus.
Yeah.
And then the two footballs, you could, I guess, choose kind of the dark side or the light side, so to speak. Kind of a really nice, high-quality official Wilson Athletic footballs featuring Darth Vader and Chewbacca. And then you may have also seen there's an exclusive at this Celebration. And if you don't have it yet, don't go looking for it, because I talked to the Wilson folks. It sold out day one. To kind of celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, they did an exclusive here for Celebration Chicago. So kind of a cool item. I wish I would have had a chance to pick it up, but I didn't get there before they sold out.
I guess it's now an eBay exclusive.
Yeah, there we go. So that's some kind of licensed sports collectibles and sporting goods, but we'll kind of move into the discussion of more event-specific items, and these are promotional giveaways, what some call stadium giveaways or SGAs. There's many teams that also host the Star Wars Nights, and particularly minor league teams, both baseball, hockey in particular, host jersey nights or often wear special apparel or special jerseys on their Star Wars Nights, and will then auction them post-game and raise money for charity, and those are very popular. And there's just kind of miscellaneous collectibles, event patches related to sporting events. There's some great hockey pucks that are out there, so we'll kind of get into some of that. So briefly, we'll talk about what's kind of the history, where did Star Wars Stadium giveaways start, what are some of the types of promotional giveaways that teams have given away, maybe take a quick look at some things coming up for the season, particularly Major League Baseball 2019. We're just a few weeks into the season here, but there's lots of opportunities to collect yet this season. As we all know, baseball's a long season, so there's some good games coming up, and typically May the 4th is a popular night. They do their giveaways, so check your local calendars and see what's coming up. And we'll get right into what was an early Star Wars Stadium giveaway. The Dodgers did one in 2009. It was a T-shirt, but this is actually a really cool one. It wasn't Star Wars night at that time in 2010. It was Empire Strikes Back night with the Dodgers, and it was a full-size 24 by 36 poster, featuring a play on the Dodger Town. It says, "This is my town," has the Dodger Town logo on it, has the classic Vader image from one of the advance posters. It was given to the first 20,000 fans, commemorating the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. And actually what's really cool about this poster, and you can't see it on the photo, is these are all individually, sequentially numbered on the bottom. Not hand-numbered, but numbered on the bottom out of 20,000. So it's kind of cool. It's not just a poster they hand out and kind of give you, but each one is individually numbered. We should have had a close-up picture on that, but you can find them out there. And Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian himself, returning for episode 9, was actually there that night to utter the immortal words of kicking off a Dodger game. It's time for Dodger baseball. So Billy D. was there that night in 2010. So what are some of the types of those promotional giveaways that teams often feature? Bobbleheads, kind of the quintessential stadium giveaway that we all think of a lot of times with teams. There's been posters and T-shirts, jerseys. A few teams have done jerseys. Other types of apparel, caps, stocking hats, beanies. There's been some really cool resin-type statues. We'll show some of those. And even Funko is in the game on Star Wars and sports now. There's been a couple, at least to my knowledge, a couple Star Wars Funko giveaways and rally monkeys. Is it anybody here from Anaheim by any chance know about that? Know about the rally monkey? There he is right there. There's the stormtrooper. We'll see him in a minute here in the panel. That's great. Well, like I said, bobbleheads are kind of the quintessential promotional giveaway, hugely popular. You'll see people lined up around the block to get into stadiums for them. And in the Star Wars context, they typically fall into kind of following themes. You'll see an actual Star Wars character represented on the bobblehead, Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, Yoda. Might be a team player, but disguised, or rather cosplaying, so to speak, as a Jedi, an X-Wing pilot, a Stormtrooper. There's even been a TIE pilot or two, I think, that they've done over the times, and oftentimes team mascots will pop up as well. So here's kind of one of the first categories. I know we've got some folks from the Cincinnati area in the crowd today. Here's some series of the ones that the Reds have done over the last several seasons. So this is typical of the Star Wars characters just simply appearing as a bobblehead and featuring the team logo. Here's some players that have been featured on a few different teams. So we've got a representation of an X-Wing pilot there. We've got Jedi Rizzo there from the hometown Chicago Cubs, not swinging a baseball bat, but swinging a pretty hefty lightsaber. There's a TIE pilot as we work our way across. And then Texas Rangers, we've got a Han Solo featured. Mascots are also popular as well and can kind of fall into several different categories. We've got a number of Jedis represented up there. We got Mr. Met from Florida Marlins, and also the Fanatic, obviously.
Yeah, don't skip the Philly Fanatic.
Yeah, I can't forget the Fanatic. So we figured we'd just spotlight kind of few cool ones that are just beyond just the simple kind of character featured. So here's Mr. Redlegs from the Cincinnati Reds. This was from 2016, given to the first 25,000 fans, and they've got him seated as an X-Wing pilot there. That's a really cool one. I've got that one actually in my collection. I really enjoyed that one. Here's a cool Jedi Council bobblehead. So not just one Jedi Master, but we've got 3 there from the Houston Astros back in 2016. And with some of these, it's what they call an all-fan giveaway, meaning a certain quantity of the first fans through the gate. Others now require purchase of a special Star Wars Night theme ticket, which often has a different price point or price level. Here's kind of a fun variant. The Arizona Diamondbacks offered in 2017 Paul Goldschmidt. And if you look at the pictures, you can see what the variant is. There's a gold helmet version of Paul Goldschmidt, and there's a black helmet version of Paul Goldschmidt for the variant collectors out there. So even if you're a variant collector, you can go for bobbleheads too. This was one of my favorites from recent seasons. We've got Mr. Met flying the Millennium Falcon with Chewie there. That was just from May of last year, and that was a really cool giveaway. They did that for 25,000 fans. Also from 2018, you can see these have kind of evolved and gotten more representative of some of the characters or scenes in the movie. And here's Joe Solo, meaning Joe Mauer from the Minnesota Twins. That was a giveaway again from 2018, and that was one of the ones that required that special purchase of a Star Wars Night ticket, not merely a ticket to the game. And teams have evolved even beyond the bobbleheads to what I kind of call resin statues, and these are all particular giveaways that the San Francisco Giants have offered over the years. The first one they did, and really a cool one, I got to admit, the Haunting Carbonite featuring former Giants closer, an all-star, Brian Wilson. He's kind of doing his typical, at the time was kind of the typical slashing motion there. You can see him on the right, and it's a little thing that'll rotate around. It has Star Wars Night logo on one side. It's got the typical Han Carbonite logo on the other, and then Brian Wilson doing his move on the other side. They featured a baseball one year, and then last year, with Madison Bumgarner, the Cantina one. I don't have it. I got to get it. It is just so cool, and that's not two different ones. That's showing both sides of the giveaway in that one. My hat's off to them. That is just incredibly creative and was immensely popular. So I mentioned earlier Funko has gotten into the game now, and we all know Funkos are hugely popular among not only Star Wars collectors, but just fans of pop culture and collectors in general. So the Giants did a really fantastic giveaway in 2017 featuring BB-8. And then last year, and if you notice on that one, that was numbered sequentially with the Funko numbering of 220. And then looking most recently, the Tampa Bay Rays did one last year, and that has a kind of special edition designation, not a designated number. And to my knowledge, those are the only 2 Funkos that have been given away as Star Wars Stadium giveaways so far. And we mentioned there's all kind of other categories as well. So here's kind of just a sampling of some of the things that have been given away. We've got a T-shirt. We've got some kind of cool stocking hats and beanies across the bottom row there. A Yankees one featuring R2-D2, a New York Islanders hockey BB-8 one, a St. Louis Cardinals, that jersey. If you're familiar with the Cardinals logo, it's the birds on the bat. Well, this is the birds on the lightsaber, and that's actually a giveaway coming up in 2019. And then, jump in.
So living in Pennsylvania, we have 16 major and minor league teams in the state. Most of them reside in baseball. It's like a birthing place for minor league baseball teams. And every one of these teams has adopted some form of promotional item, and it's a phenomenal way for them to draw in additional people. You have people in costumes that you can take pictures with. It's really become an event at all of these things. And it's kind of interesting to have worked with Chris to put together the history of some of this and see how it has evolved over time.
And as we kind of teased earlier, and we saw one of the rally monkeys getting up or held up over there in the corner. The Los Angeles Angels began a great, the rally monkey is a big part of the Los Angeles Angels kind of culture and the experience in their stadium there. And they began a great giveaway in 2015, actually immediately following the celebration that was held in Anaheim that April of 2015. The giveaway was the Monday after celebration had finished. I think, did you go to that game? Were you part of that group that went to that game? Yep. So that they started off in 2015 with the Rally Jedi, and then have evolved, and you see some of the other ones featured. So they had a Stormtrooper, which we saw someone brought along to the panel and held up over there in the corner, which is awesome. I love that. They've done a Rebel Pilot, what I call the Rally Smuggler, really a Han Solo featured from last year, and coming up this year. And we got the date on there. You can probably see it. So if you're from that era and you want to check it out, May the 24th, this is the year of the Rally Wookiee in Anaheim. So coming soon. Here's just kind of a spotlight on a few quick 2019 bobbleheads that are coming up. And there's a bunch of stuff coming out this year. So check out your local teams and maybe look at what they're offering. But as I was just kind of looking and preparing the panel, these are some of the 4 that really popped out at me. The Phillies, Mike, you better get this one. Jedi Jake Arrieta, cool bobblehead, the pitching motion, wearing the Jedi robes, and if you can tell, the baseball is levitating in Jake Arrieta's hand there. It's kind of hard to see it at first, so kind of a cool touch they've incorporated into the bobblehead. The Falcon over at Fenway Park, I mean, that one is outstanding. I'm not even sure how big that is, but it looks great, so I'm hoping to track that one down. The BB-8 hat from the Braves, I think a couple teams are doing hat giveaways this year. I thought that was a great logo on a hat there, and it's not Ray in BB-8, but it's Trey in BB-8 for the Orioles coming up in 2019. So check your calendars, and particularly I'm sure we have some local folks here, so there's some 2019 giveaways. So we thought we'd talk about some local teams here real quick. So the Cubs, obviously yesterday. Did anybody go to the Cubs game yesterday? Get the blanket? Okay, I see a few hands there. When the White Sox have 2 this year, and they'll be happy to tell you about it down in the booth. I talked to them a couple times over the course of the convention here, but just tomorrow, actually. So if there's anybody either local or going to be staying in Chicago here after Celebration, they have a night tomorrow night, which I believe requires the purchase of a special themed ticket. It's not one of the ones, it's an all-fan giveaway, but the one for tomorrow is the Chewbacca bobblehead that the White Sox are giving away. And then coming up just in another couple short weeks here, they're going to be featuring the R2-D2 that you see on the far right. And then the Brewers, also on May the 4th, have Orlando Calrissian coming up. Kind of a cool sculpt on that bobblehead. It's really the way they've captured the swishing motion of the cape there. I'll be curious to see if the gold is as vibrant on the actual 20-some thousand that they give away as that the promotional picture looks like. But team jerseys are also a huge thing we talked about They wear those specially designed jerseys, and they're often auctioned after the game to raise money for either local charities or national organizations. And primarily baseball and hockey are the two that we often see it in. And these jerseys are very popular among all collectors. The auctions raise great amounts of money for charity that these teams do. And particularly focus collectors love them because a lot of them feature certain characters or scenes from or elements from movies. So they're very popular among focus collectors. So this slide you see, there's a cool one there. I love the Cantina band. I'm a big A New Hope fan and love the Cantina, so I love the Cantina band on that one. You see an R2-D2 theme and a couple X-Wing pilot type uniforms there. So I thought we'd just spotlight a few uniforms over the years. I mean, we could honestly do a whole panel. It sounds crazy, but we could do a whole panel just on Star Wars uniforms. So we figured we'd spotlight a few of them. This was an early one back in 2013, and there's been a number of different versions that teams have done of Chewbacca over the years. This is one I do happen to have in my collection from the Toledo Mud Hens, May the 4th, 2013. And you see there, I think Chewie was on hand to either deliver the first pitch. I don't know if he threw out the first pitch, but he was there to deliver the first pitch. And here's kind of a wild one featuring Darth Maul that the Brooklyn Cyclones did in 2014. And they've also done a series of Star Wars jerseys over the years, but that's very vibrant, and I thought fitting, given that we're talking about the anniversary of the Phantom Menace and the anniversary panel tomorrow, that we should have something from the Phantom Menace represented as well, because the jerseys that are out there, they do cover both original trilogy and the prequels, so you'll see a variety of stuff. And to that end, there are other prequel characters that have been featured on Star Wars jerseys. So here's the Altoona, Pennsylvania, the Curve, from May the 21st of 2016. And this is a quote, and it's worth reading here. Because so many minor league teams do Star Wars nights with jerseys, we tried to do something that will be unique, said General Manager Rob Egan. So we thought, who better than the annoying Jar Jar Binks to distract the opposing pitching staff? There's a method to our madness. So I know that someone who's a Jar Jar focus collector. I don't think she has this in her collection, but I know she would.
Is that still available in their shop?
It is not. No, that's one. It'd be hard to track that one down. If it is, it won't be available for long because it gives somebody an idea. And that's not the first Star Wars jersey that the Altoona Curve did. They actually did one the prior year. And if you think this one's wild, I'm sure these players were fired up the previous year when they walked into the locker room and put on that beauty. I mean, that is beautiful, folks. And the artwork is one thing, but if you look at the picture, the players wearing that, I mean, they're happy. They're the guys crossing home plate, obviously, but boy, that is quite a representation of Jabba there. Excuse me. And I got to ask before I go to this next slide: is there anybody here from El Paso, Texas, by any chance? Anyone? Oh, I was hoping there would be, but this team, when they named their team, the team was named by it was a contest to name this team. It's a AAA affiliate in El Paso, Texas. This is absolutely not a joke. This is 100% the truth. They are the El Paso Chihuahuas. And here is a jersey from August the 30th, 2016. I love this jersey, Gus. I want to find one of these jerseys so bad. I do not have this in my collection.
I want one too. I love it with the Hildebrand art.
The Hildebrand art, and then Chihuahuas emblazoned across the front of the jersey.
Yeah.
And so here's a couple in-game shots of the players wearing that one, but I did not know about that one until I was doing research for the panel. That is spectacular. And then here's a cool one. We talk about focus collectors. So Toledo Mud Hens in 2018 did a really cool C-3PO jersey. And it's the first one. I think other teams have done featured a C-3PO jersey, but this is the first one that's ever incorporated the sequel trilogy 3PO, or at least the Phantom Menace 3PO with the red arm, or in this case, the red sleeve on the jersey. So that's a really cool one. And here's, we talked a lot about baseball. Here is a hockey jersey from the Saskatoon Blades from 2015. Again, it's not always characters. Here's kind of a representation of a scene from the film. Obviously, the classic battle on Hoth. We got snow speeders and AT-ATs. And again, I think I've got a friend that owns that jersey, but that's a cool one as well. And oftentimes, I don't have it in the panel here, but oftentimes you'll see Darth Vader or a stormtrooper coming out for the ceremonial drop the puck at the beginning of the game as well. And as I said, they're popular among focus collectors. Here's a very good friend of mine from Ohio, Mark Schnack, and he is an Akbar. Well, you saw him in the video. He was in the video. It's a trap at the beginning of the panel. Well, this is some items from Mark's collection. He's an Akbar focus collector, and he's been able to track down so far 3 really cool Akbar jerseys that he's got framed up in his collection. So Focus collectors love these jerseys and add them to their collection. Real quick, there's some kind of other miscellaneous items, but patches. There's probably a lot of patch collectors in the audience or fans. I'm a patch collector. Here's some Star Wars night patches that have been done. Some are associated with the Knights in general. Some are related to the 501st and the work they do and different troops that they have affiliated with the Star Wars Knights. Oftentimes, or the vast majority of the time, local 501st organizations will assist the teams and bring their characters and their folks. So fans have an opportunity to see some of these characters up close. When we come to Celebration, we kind of take it for granted. We get to see stormtroopers walking around kind of all day, every day. But it's really neat for some of these fans. They may not ever attend a Celebration, but when they get to go to a Star Wars night for kids, it's mind-blowing to get to see some of these characters and some of these Vaders. So it's just a cool experience. Here's some hockey patches from some different teams over the years, and these are ones that were incorporated onto jerseys from some different nights. Both Muskegon and the Flint Generals have done a number of Star Wars nights, and it's not just patches. So there's a few patches there. Some of those were jersey patches, and then also some really cool, outstanding hockey pucks. The LA Kings was an early one that they did. The Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a Star Wars night that was affiliated with the Star Wars Grand Florida Alliance. They had a great event there that night. And then more recent one on the right. This is a practice puck from the Washington Capitals in 2016. That's one I happen to have from my collection that a friend was able to get for me. They use practice pucks or warm-up pucks on the ice at the beginning, and then I think they sell them, raise money for charity, what's left. And again, it doesn't have any Star Wars logo on it, but it has the specific date from the game on it and has Star Wars Night on it. So pretty cool stuff. So that's kind of some of the event giveaways, event-specific things. And now we talked about race medals and things that we're all kind of three passionate about. I know I've done a lot of talking so far. I promise these other guys are going to talk too. So when we talk about race medals, you think, how much could actually be out there? And just for the record, the photo of Chewie there, that's a kind of a promotional photo. Chewie's not out there running the race, although there's some amazing costumes that fans had. So kind of what we're going to talk about here, and we're going to turn it over to these guys to do some talking for a minute. Talk about the history and evolution of how these Star Wars races have kind of started. Talk about some of the race collectibles that are available on race weekends, and most importantly, or not most importantly, but some the focus we kind of want to focus on is some of these spectacular medals. I mean, and these are bling. These are Star Wars bling to the nth degree. They're huge. They're well designed. They're really cool, spectacular items. And we also want to talk about kind of displaying your race medals. And just out of curiosity, is there anyone here that's participated in the Run Disney Star Wars races over the time? That's great. How many, I'm just curious, is there anyone that's run every single one of them? Very cool. Very cool. We were curious. Very, very cool. So, Mike, if you want to start talking about some of the background.
Yeah, so I started running the Disney races in 2016 when they did the Dark Side, but that wasn't where it all started. And if you turn back the clock, it actually started in California in 2015, and it was the Star Wars Half Marathon weekend. But in the research, it actually goes back a little bit further to find the first Star Wars themed race, and it was held in Disneyland in 2011 as part of the one of their half marathon weekends that they had out there, and they themed the first race, the Star Tours 5K. And I was surprised when I came across that. And Gus, I think you were able to track down that medal.
Yeah. So the background is that Run Disney does events at several of the parks. They do this in Anaheim. They do this in Orlando, and they also do it in Paris. And there are Star Wars themed races, but there are also races that are just Disney themed. And that's what occurred this time. So Disneyland does a Disneyland half marathon every year, they used to, around Labor Day. And recently they've paused all the races at Disneyland. But in 2011, they made the 5K medal centered around the revamp of the Star Tours ride. And so that's an obscure Star Wars one. A lot of times, actually, they don't announce ahead of time that it's going to be like Star Wars themed or whatever, some other Disney themed, Pixar themed or something. And you find out after you register for the race. But I think people who register for that race, luckily, found out they had a Star Tours 5K.
Yeah, so that was the earliest record we could find of a Star Wars-themed race, certainly from a Disney perspective. But where all of this really took off was in 2015 when they had the Star Wars Half Marathon weekend. And if you look at the numbers, you're talking probably 10 to 15,000 people were running the 10K and the half marathon. And we'll get into a little bit more in terms of the numbers over the years and how they have held. But they repeated that light side race again in 2016 and in 2017. And in between that, the dark side had started. And the dark side is the one that continues. As Gus mentioned, Anaheim and Disney put a pause on the California races. And in 2019, just last week, and really, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, we were all, or those of us that were participating, it was themed now the Rival Run in 2019 in Orlando. So,
and one thing to add is what we mean by the run is this is done over a 3-day weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with the idea that you run a 5K on the Friday, you run a 10K on the Saturday, and you run a half marathon on the Sunday. And then what happens is if you run all the races, there are also some additional bonus medals, and we'll get to that shortly. But so the race weekend is really usually about 3 different races, and a lot of runners run all of them.
yeah, and it's not required that you run all of them. You can pick and choose and right size however you want. But over the course of the weekend, you're seeing, and I'm sure there's some repeat runners, but probably between 20 to 25,000 total runners over the weekend. And so you get to start your morning every day around 3 a.m. Then you can get to go to your corral. And really what they're doing is they're having these races more or less completed by the time the parks are ready to open. So you still have all day to enjoy the park.
Yeah. Or sleep.
So taking a look at the race weekend collectibles that are out there, we're going to start with just Disney because the medals literally are spectacular. It's Disney. They do everything so well, from the start of registration on Thursday to the last day on Sunday. There's a lot of things that happen during that weekend. So there'll be things that are included with your race registration, one of which is every runner who registers is going to get a Champion Tech shirt for each race that you run. There are optional add-ons, some race merchandise, which I think Chris has already. Okay, so we're looking at the race bibs here. There's race bibs, there's finisher certificates, there's incredible photo opportunities. So both pre and post race, they'll have characters set up where you can do photo opportunities. And the finisher certificates are spectacular in themselves. I mean, that was printed off of just a regular printer, but it'll track your time and give you a reminder of why you want to sign up again next year when they come around again. So one of the items that there is a sort of a following in is the race collectible pins. So initially there were 2 series of pins for each race weekend. They proved to be pretty popular and have grown a little bit since then. But the first set is a replica medals. So you're going to get your medal around your neck at the end of the race, but they also have little pins if you didn't want to carry that or you wanted a smaller souvenir. So they have these replicas of the medals that are basically the exact same thing on a micro scale of what they're going to give you for completing the races. And then the second series is designed around the theme of that weekend. So if it's a light side theme or a dark side theme, or in this case for 2019, a rival run theme, you're going to get medals that might pit Han Solo against Boba Fett, for instance, or Phasma and Finn for the 2019 rival run. But in 2018, that also evolved into a third series of an I conquered it or an I did it pin. So Disney figuring out how to capture more of our dollars on a regular basis.
And just one more comment on that. Pin collecting is a huge thing in Disney parks, if you're familiar with that. And these are special event pins, so they're super hard to get, very limited. One of the things I did, since been doing the Star Wars races, I always bought each of the pins and just a standard thing to collect them. And then later on, I had this idea of, in my office, I have this bulletin board, sort of cork board, bulletin board, and I wanted a Disney pin of every metal pin of every race I ever did at Disney. And so I went back to try to find pins. I wanted to get second pins now, and then also for non-Star Wars races. And it was quite a chore. I actually haven't finished doing it, but the whole board is just filled now with these metal pins. And fortunately, a lot of them do surface on eBay and do come up and from specialist Disney trading companies. But yeah, I still haven't completed my second set of these, so I'm still working on that.
So as you can see now on the current slide, there's also the Disney Mickey ears. So part of the race weekend, they also have kids runs during the races. They could be 100-yard dash or 300-yard dashes, but there are certainly an aspect of these weekends are geared towards the kids as well. And here's an example of the Mickey ears over the years as they've evolved from 2015 through 2018. And this year was I think if I remember right, Gus, was BB-8 themed.
Right. Yes, and the ears are actually one of the items prone to sell out really fast. These are super limited, and in the store when they sell things, you can actually use. Now they let you pre-order these, but these are one of the toughest things to find afterwards, and the toughest thing to find even the day of that they open the store.
Well, and certainly the crossover appeal of this is obviously you've got the Disney collectors and the Star Wars collectors who are equally passionate about the type of a collectible like this. So it's big, huge crossover.
And I'm still trying to hunt down one of those R2-D2 ones from the first year.
Yeah.
Other merchandise includes car magnets. They put out a wide array of magnets over the weekend. These are ones that you can put on the back of your car or on your refrigerator at home. That is a photo of a whole bunch of the ones I've accumulated over the years, just thrown on our dining room table. But you can see there's a lot of color and variety inside of those. Some mark the distance of the race, others capture the spirit of the weekend, and others are just I did it, I survived, I conquered it kind of races, magnets to capture the race weekend. And they have now also moved to acrylic magnets, and there's things called a virtual run now too that also comes with magnets. And then there's everything else too. Banners, clothing, drinking glasses, hats, headbands, jewelry, magnets, ornaments, Dooney and Burke items, and water bottles, and that's not the complete list.
There's obviously things you buy and offered for sale in the store, kind of typical retail sale, and there's kind of other race weekend collectible type items that can also be acquired and purchased. They have some amazing signage and amazing banners they have kind of throughout the whole race weekend, both in the store and at other elements of the race weekend, that at the conclusion of the race weekend, they'll offer those for sale as well, and there's a separate kind of tent you can purchase some of that event weekend merchandise from. So
these are like event banners and things that normally, like if you think about it, like a lot of us who collect other Star Wars things will want to get retail store displays, and those things you always have to sort of unofficially get them. The cool thing here is they actually, all the banners and things they make specially for that one event, they'll offer them in the store at the end of the race, the last race of the weekend.
Yeah, and so here's a few. The banners on the left are probably about 14 inches by 5 feet, and those are 3 banners from the light side race weekend in 2017. That's one that we all ran, and we've got friends in the audience that ran that race. It was a great weekend, and those 3 are for my collection. I love that race weekend, and the one thing that's particularly unique about the purple one on the top. So this race took place in January of 2017. In 2017, obviously being the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, this is some of the first times that the 40th anniversary logo appeared on any Star Wars related items and merchandise. So there was this banner, and there was also a glass or a plastic Tervis tumbler that you could purchase, and that's kind of the first appearance of some of that 40th anniversary items. And the banner on the right, it's kind of hard to describe. What's the size on it? It's huge.
Yeah,
it's probably half the size or a third of the size of what the backdrop here behind us. And you can see it features the course, in this case of the half marathon, and it shows the different mile markers and how it traverses the Disney property, which parks you pass and enter through and run through part of on the course. So kind of a cool collectible. Hard to find a place to put something that big, but some of the smaller ones are a little bit more easy to display. But
yeah, so we're going to switch now to sort of the marquee item of the whole weekend, which is the race medals. And these things literally are spectacular. I've run a lot of races, and they've come with medals, but there's nothing quite like these Disney medals in terms of the detail, the weight, and just the presentation on these. So we'll walk through sort of the history of what these look like over the years as they move from the light side to the dark side to the Rival Run. But before all of that, here's a preview or a picture of what the Star Tours 5K medal looked like from back in 2011. And after that, we moved to the light side in 2015. This was that first full Star Wars themed weekend. And you have the kids race medal, the 5K medal. Both of those are rubber medals, at least at that point in time. And then you have the 10K and then the Rebel logo on the half marathon.
And one thing I want to say, the kids race medals, so as an adult who collects these things, it's interesting how to get a kids race medal. Like you should register your kids and then like bribe them to sell their medal. But you know, actually, so surprisingly, very few kids race medals ever get sold. The adults, like after one of these races, you check on eBay, there's like dozens of listings of finisher medals from any of these races, except the kids medals. The kids tend to hold on to their medals, so they actually are, if you want to collect them in complete sets, very difficult to get. The kids race ones are always like, I've only been able to find the ones from each of the inaugural races, the Dark Side and the one in 2015, but all the other years have not been able to find them. Yeah. I'm always looking for them.
I've been watching them for months to show up, and one finally showed up about 2 weeks ago, and it went for, if not over 100, just under $100 for a medal. But these do not surface very often. So we'll take a look at a few other years here, just so you can see the evolution of the medals over time. This is the light side in 2016. The Luke medal was still rubber at that time, as was the kids with the Yoda far to the right. And then you have the 10 and the half as well. The 10 or the half marathon that year was very similar to the prior year, but Disney will change out and alter the ribbons that are with the medals each year. And this is the light side in 2017. So you have a rubber medal for the kids races, but then it shifted to all sort of medals for the other ones. The BB-8's pretty cool because it's got a spinning bottom on it. And I believe the half marathon, if you flip it around, it has a spinner in the middle of it.
And I like how they use the Medal of Yavin, the pretty obvious thing to use in Star Wars, but for the light side races, they tended to use it every year because just like one thing from the Star Wars universe you could apply to these finisher medals.
And now we have the inaugural Dark Side in 2016. You have Darth Vader on the kids races, Stormtrooper on the 5K, you have a TIE Fighter on the 10, and another spinner medal with the Emperor and Darth Vader for the half marathon. 2017 took a little bit different theme, maybe a little bit more modern theme with the kids races, and then the 5, 10, and half. You see Kylo on the half there. And these pictures don't really do the justice. These medals are probably the size of your hand or a fist if you make that, to get a comparison on the size. The Dark Side in 2018, you can see the medals there. And then the Rival Run in 2019. So you had the kids races, which shows BB-8, and the 5K has Phasma and Finn. And I want to show the next one, because this is, in my opinion, the best medal. And I wish I would have, had I seen the real one in person, I would have taken a different picture that would have showed the medal in its entirety. It's a gold medal with Han Solo and Boba Fett with a green ribbon that has incredible presentation. And there are also challenge medals. Chris, you want to tell them what a challenge medal is?
Absolutely. So Gus kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but challenge medals are earned as part of the Disney program by completing 2 or more designated races. In this case, we're talking about a 10K and the half marathon. To get the challenge medal, it requires a separate race registration. And here's kind of a brief summary of the challenges that have been offered so far. There's been the Rebel Challenge, the Dark Side Challenge, the newly inaugurated, rebranded Rival Run Challenge, and the granddaddy of them all, the Kessel Run Challenge. You'll see it. It's spectacular. So here's some of the challenge medals. The Rebel Challenge was run 3 years, 2015, 16, and 17. Interestingly enough, featured Vader on the first medal. We see R2 on the second in a similar design, and then a kind of a cool, different shaped droids featured on the 17, the final year they did that. For the Dark Side Challenge, the Death Star has been a prominent element that they've incorporated into the medals. And then as the new movies have been released and we've seen some sequel trilogy evolution, we've had Kylo on the first order challenge that was done last year as part of the Dark Side Race Weekend, and then the brand new one that these guys just earned last weekend, the Rival Run Challenge medal. And as I said, kind of the granddaddy of them all, the Kessel Run Challenge. You might say, well, what is the Kessel Run Challenge? How do you get the Kessel Run Challenge? Well, previously it was completed by completing the Star Wars Light Side Half Marathon on the West Coast and the Star Wars Dark Side Half Marathon on the East Coast, meaning in Orlando, in the same year. And the medal, I mean, if you think the other medals, you make the Fister big. The Kessel Run is it's a chunk of metal, and they've done a spectacular job. It's evolved ever so slightly in the course of the medals, but it's a gorgeous medal. And the virtual half, which is kind of been incorporated the last couple years because they've discontinued, at least pushed the pause button, as Mike alluded to earlier on those light side races. They've offered virtual runs. And we talked earlier about, how many people that run the races and how many have been completed and all these medals. So what's it look like? What do these medals all look like to envision them all at once? So here's a great friend of ours, Chris Wyman, who's completed many of these medals with us. And so all the Run Disney medals from 2015 to 2018. So this is last year. This doesn't include the ones from this year. But looking just up through last year, we got one runner, 19 races, 28 medals, and that's 10 plus pounds of medals, and 147.5 miles. So it's a fun experience, and we want to give you a little flavor of what that experience is. Mike alluded to it earlier about getting up early and being out there, but these next couple slides we'll show here just give you a little flavor. The slide there, they always shoot off fireworks when the race goes off. You see folks in costume on the race. We've got a friend of ours happens to be represented in one of those photos that Run Disney captured. You see people all along the course, supporting you, cheering you on at the finish line as well. And kind of one of the big fun race experiences is it's always great at the end when we all see each other again at the end, and we've all got the medals, and these are some kind of the traditional post-race pictures that we've taken.
Always in a parking lot, it seems.
Yeah, always in a parking lot.
If you've never run a Disney race, they're very different than a lot of other running races. They are designed to encourage a lot of people who aren't typically athletic or always running to do their first race. And so what I would say is it's not a race really conducive for getting your personal record on races, although people have achieved their best times in some Disney races because there are huge crowds. There are a lot of things, you're winding through Disney parks. It's not always designed for the best time, but the support structure is amazing. Like in terms of taking care of you, making sure people are well hydrated, and in the swag they have for it, in the people cheering along the course. So a lot of first-time runners do run these Disney races, and so if you've never run in your life before, and you're not a regular runner, I would encourage you to try it, even one of the shorter races sometime. Not even just the Star Wars race, any of the ones at the Disney parks. It's really an amazing experience, and it's so different than races, other types of running races.
There are races in other places than Disney too. So we came across that there were Run Singapore races held in 2017 and 2018 where you had 3 distances to choose from to earn your medals. And if we go to the next slide, you'll take a look at what these medals look like. Probably on par with what the Disney medals look like. I haven't seen or felt one of these in person, but sort of impressive. And Chris, I think you found that there were statues for the finishers and there were pin collectibles at the Run Singapore event as well. So Gus was encouraging people to run, and I'm always happy to talk about people and running. My wife wasn't a runner until she ran the Dark Side Half Marathon for the first time. And so now there's this thing that's exploded on the scene called a virtual race that you can do anywhere. It can be a run or a walk. It can be any distance you choose or a certain distance for the race. You can do it in your gym. You can do it outside on a track. You pretty much pick where you want to do it. But this is something that has exploded over the last couple of years into there are a lot of virtual run medals. So we'll show you a few slides here in fairly quick order of how this has evolved over the years, where many of them are coming with May coming up. They're themed around May the 4th or Revenge of the 5th. And these are what some of these medals look like. They'll mail the medals to you once you submit your proof of time, or that you at least say you completed it. Or in some cases, just because you paid it, you're going to get the medal. So there's a fair amount of honor system in here, but these are some pretty cool pieces of bling to have. I think there's a couple more. This Carrie Fisher one was one that caught my eye that was pretty amazing. And there's a couple more slides here. And as you look, you see characters, and there may be drawn for focus collectors as well. But the next slide is one that was pretty special.
Yeah, and I know this is Jez from the UK, Jez Allenson. And if any of you went to the last celebration, Jez was in a booth running on a treadmill, if you remember that, back in the corner with the fan tables. And he's raised a tremendous amount of money for charity over the years. And we talked before the panel, raised over $44,000 through his runs for different charities in the UK. And at Celebration, I just want to make sure I've got this right, he raised over $1,200 a day through his runs last celebration in the back on the treadmill. About $5,200 over the course of that. And this was a series of virtual medals that he did, offered recently. And some of you may have seen him. He was in costume today as the running stormtrooper walking around on the floor. I ran into him about shortly before the noon hour walking around. So we thank Jez for doing that, and I know he's here at the panel today as well.
And Jez, if you could come into the room afterwards, I think you have some of the registration forms that people could sign up for those virtual races as well.
I want to talk about display.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to go to Gus to display, because you on the next slide you have the best display, but there are official ones.
Yeah, there you can. So in these races, all the Disney races, but particularly Star Wars ones, there are framed medal sets that you can order at the events, and there are generally two different companies that do them. The one you see pictured on the right actually gets their frames licensed, because they'll use Star Wars graphics and logos on their frames. So I tend to prefer the style on the right. But what's cool about this is when you order these, you don't have to hand in your medals to get them framed. They get additional medals that they frame, so you get sort of an extra medal set when you order them.
And there's alternative options too. I mean there's this option, and then Gus, I don't know if you want to talk about some of these.
Yeah, there's
as well.
hangers. So they've sold actually a couple different ones at the Star Wars races, like the one you see there, the do or do not hanger. And then you'll see some people that sell metal hangers just in general, the vendors that sell metal hangers. And some of them will be Star Wars themed. There's different ways to display them. What you see, like the one in the lower right, is the one. I have this bookshelf where I took I just took a bunch of like the Riddell and Gentle Giant head helmets, all these helmets these small, scaled helmets that I had over the years. I just put medals around their necks until like there were so many medals that the helmet started to fall over because it was so much weight. And what was interesting was, like, in this display, and I run on and off. I'm not always running, and right now I'm way out of shape, even though I ran this race last weekend. But I've run for many years, and from like couple decades of running, I had one shelf of medals, and then once I started doing these Disney races 5 years ago, that's what filled that whole thing, because they're huge, and there's so many bonus medals you get and all that. And so anyway, those are just from different Disney races, not just the Star Wars ones, and that's how I display it at our house.
Well, we've kind of reached the end of the panel now at this point, but we talked earlier about giveaways and jerseys, and so we thought, and you all obviously received a raffle ticket when you came in, so if you don't mind grabbing out your raffle tickets, with the Star Wars Sports Collectibles panel, we thought we got to have some kind of a giveaway. And we talked about some of the jerseys and the teams that feature different jerseys, so we thought it'd be pretty cool to give away one of those jerseys that was worn, offered by one of those teams from the Toledo Mud Hens. So I'm going to lift this up here, and I don't know if, could we go live on the high microphone up here? All right, so we've got the jersey here, and so we thought the C-3PO jersey, I mean, it's a great jersey, but what could even be better is if we offer it raffle signed by Anthony Daniels, the C-3PO Toledo Mud Hens jersey, and this is courtesy of our good friends at Official Picks. So we thank them generously for donating this jersey to the raffle today. So thanks to Official Picks and officialpicks.com. We have this to raffle off today, so if you're going to reach out and pull out those golden raffle tickets, we'll see if we have a winner here that's going to walk out of here to this panel with a signed jersey from Anthony Daniels today.
So the winning number is 773090.
Have a winner?
All right.
Come on up. Please come on up. Congratulations. Congratulations. So we hope you enjoyed the panel. It was kind of quick. We talked about a lot of different areas, but thank you so much for coming, Gus. Yep. Oh, excuse me. We're going to draw one other. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. I forgot. Courtesy of our good friends at the Chicago White Sox, we've got a Stormtrooper bobblehead to raffle off as well. So we'll do this real quick. I'm sorry.
All right.
So Gus, if you'll do the honors, please.
All right. The winning number is 773019.
019. Come on up.
019.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. We hope you had as much fun as we had putting it together. Have a great day.